Good evening, everyone. My name is Barbara Griffin. This is the Goffstown Planning Board. Today is our meeting of January 14th. We are meeting electronically and in person. We are doing that in accordance with Governor Sununu's Emergency Order Number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04. That gives us the authorization to meet in this manner. You can either be here physically or listen contemporaneously to this meeting electronically, either on your phone. It is also being live streamed. We have provided this public access by telephone with video and other electronic means. If you want to participate telephonically, you can please dial 603-766-5646. It's participant code 785645, and you would then hit the pound sign to log on. We've provided public notice of this information, how to use the available telephone number, and had the agenda posted. If anybody has a problem with telephone access, please call 660-5000, 660-5000. And in the case that the public is unable to access, and that did happen once since we've been doing this, we will adjourn the meeting and reschedule it at a later time. Any votes taken during this meeting will be done by roll call, and we're going to take attendance, and we're going to also ask everybody to identify whether they're with anybody during the meeting. And again, if you have called in from the public and you wish to speak when we're at that item on the agenda that is of interest to you, dial *9 or hit *9 on your keypad, and the operator here, Patty Gale, our planning assistant, will recognize you. So we are ready to begin our meeting, and when we do so, I'd like to take attendance. I'm going to go through people here in the room first, and then people online. Patty, let's start with you.
Patty Gale, staff.
Gail LeBrecq, alternate and recording secretary.
My name is Barbara Griffin.
Tim Redmond.
I'm David Pierce. I'm an alternate member.
And then online, we have the following members. Phil.
Yes, I'm here and I'm alone.
Peter Georgianis.
Peter.
Ka- Karen Hughes.
I'm here and I'm alone.
James Raymond.
I'm here and I'm alone.
Peter, let's try for you again.
I don't know if you heard me. I'm here and alone.
All right. No, we did not for some reason. I did hear you just now. Thank you, everybody. We also have staff. Sarah Wordy.
Sarah Wordy, town engineer, and I am never alone.
And Sarah has a young child with her all of the time, who I have been assured has no interest in these proceedings. Joanne.
Joanne?
You can unmute. Joanne, we can't hear you. Joanne was on the line earlier, so we know she's here, but
She is a...
Can you hear me now?
yes.
Yes.
Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director, and I am alone right now.
Thank you. All right, everyone. The first items on our agenda are acceptance and correction of planning board minutes. We have a few to go through. You received them with previous packets and via email. I'd like to deal with them individually. The planning board minutes of November 5th. Do I have a motion?
Were you appointed?
Oh, thank you. And David Pierce is appointed to vote. We are missing a member, Kimberly Peace, so an alternate member will be voting.
You also have Nancy on as staff, too.
Oh, okay. Nancy Larson, you want to identify yourself as being online?
Yes, this is Nancy Larson, Zoning Code Enforcement Officer.
Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome.
All right, the November 5th minutes, do I have a motion from anybody to approve those?
Motion to
Motion to
approve.
approve.
All right, it's been moved by David, seconded by Phil. Is that all right, Phil?
That's fine.
All right, is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a roll call vote, starting with members in attendance. Tim,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
the chair votes yes. Phil,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Karen,
Abstain.
and James.
Yes.
Thank you. We also have minutes for our meeting of November 17th. Can I have a motion on those, please?
David Pierce, yes. Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Peter has seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote with members present first and then members online. Tim,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
the chair votes yes. Phil,
Abstain.
Peter,
Yes.
Karen,
Abstain.
James.
Yes.
Thank you. Finally, we have minutes of December 10th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
It's been moved by Phil, seconded by Tim. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Tim,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
the chair votes yes. Phil,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
and James.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. That takes care of that item. We have some correspondence items that I would prefer to take up in regards to the applications they pertain to as we proceed through our business tonight. We have old business tonight. We have had pending before us since December 17th an application for map 3, lots 32A and 32A1. This was a subdivision review hearing for a proposed lot line adjustment between two lots. Joanne, would you please address the board in regards to what's going on with this item?
Yes. So the application was submitted by Andover Self-Storage, and the owner at that time was the Harvest Christian Church. The church sold the property last week to Tebow Corporation, and so the church no longer has any attachment to the property. The Tebow Corporation's attorney sent Derek and I a letter on Monday, which you should all have a copy of, and another email today was sent to me from Robert, I think his name is Bojo, stating that Tebow Corporation is the new owner and they are not interested in pursuing this site plan, so that they would like the application removed from our agenda. So you would need to make a motion to either deny without prejudice or to find the application incomplete and deny the application because the owner is no longer the same owner that is on our application package.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I make the motion that we deny with, as Joanne stated, without prejudice, as the ownership has changed on the property.
Jim, can you
Barbara, I have
please,
a question on
Jim, I was going to recognize you before I went any further because I'm not sure we have an application to deny. Jim?
Yeah, I don't see that we do. We have an applicant who had an application before us. There's no, we have a landowner saying, well, we bought it, but there's still an application before us. It's unclear what's happening. Are they withdrawing their application? And I'd like to hear from the church if they've assigned. It's just murky the way he's requested it. There's no, there's nothing before us to deny in the sense that it's a different. The owner is not the applicant who filed it.
This is Barbara. This is Joanne. Can I answer Jim?
Yes.
Jim, I did request that the applicant withdraw the application, and his response to me was that he had something else going on tonight, and he was asking that the application be continued. And I replied back that he no longer had standing and could not request a continuation, since we do have something in writing from the owner stating that he doesn't wish to go forward. The applicant's attorney then contacted me and said that he was just looking to table the application until he could figure out what he was going to do. I contacted the owner today, contacted me late this afternoon, and wanted to make sure that this application would not go forward. I asked him if there was anything happening, behind the scenes with this applicant, and he said definitely not, that this was over. So I guess you could just withdraw it based on the letter from the owner's attorney, because I can't get anything from the applicant. I tried, but he didn't respond that way. So,
Do we have both parties confirmed that the original applicant no longer owns the property?
Well, the original applicant would be Goffstown Harvest Christian Church, who would authorize Andover to go forward. That was who owned the property. We have a copy
we have
of
a new deed that was recorded last week. It's in your packet. It's attached to the letter from Mr. Tebow's attorney.
So we do have evidence that it was recorded.
Yes.
Correct.
It's attached to your email too, Jim, that was sent.
Now, there's no question that the deed has been recorded. We have a book and page number, and from what I can tell, I have nothing before us requesting or authorizing anybody to go forward on this application. So I think we have not accepted this application. So I think that, in fact, the application needs to be denied. It was noticed tonight, and I think we need to deny it.
However, on that line, I would then, if we can substitute a motion, that as the applicant has not, well, neither the applicant nor the landowner has appeared at tonight's hearing, we deny acceptance, or I don't know what the right verb is, acceptance of the application.
Is there a second to that motion?
But we have another motion on the table. I don't want to push it aside.
Right, I have a question.
The other motion didn't get seconded yet. Phil?
Well, there's two things. The applicant apparently requested verbally to the planning coordinator about postponing the or tonight's meeting, but we have a book and page, so I think any action that we take on this, it might be best to reference that book and page.
Well, it's part of the file that we have on it, so, we've had a robust discussion on the fact that we don't have an applicant that owns the property.
But I think the only evidence, I mean, Jim's point, something, what do we have as evidence? The only thing we have that we're basing everything on is a deed, and we have a book and page.
And we have a letter from Attorney Foho.
The information is in the material. Patty?
You could also find the application incomplete because the ownership has changed hands. What's on the application is now not the correct owner, and the plans all reference the wrong owner. So the application is really incomplete because it's not updated to, it has transferred, it's been recorded. Tebow's now the owner of the property.
Jim or Peter, do you like those thoughts? I need somebody to make a definitive motion on this, and I don't think there's any question that we have no one before us tonight for this application. The applicant no longer owns the property, and we had an authorized agent requesting approval who is not before the board and has no relationship with the current owner. And accordingly, this application is appropriate to be denied. Is there anybody who wants to make a motion?
I think you just,
But Barbara, if I could just add, you do have an email from the owner's attorney stating that they do not wish for this to proceed.
Okay,
So even though they're not there in person, you have a copy of the email.
Motion then that the application is incomplete due to the change of ownership of the property.
all right, Jim, are you okay with that?
we've allowed people just change, switch applicants and owners in the past, so the fact that they haven't appeared at this hearing when it was scheduled for a hearing and nobody appears, to me, is grounds to find it's incomplete, rule on it, and deny the...
All right, so I'll take that as a motion from David that Gail's gonna reword a little bit. I'll take that as a second from Jim. Is there any further discussion on this? All right, seeing none, I'm gonna call for a roll call vote with those in the room first. Jim, I mean Tim, sorry.
Yes.
David,
Yes.
the chair votes yes. Phil,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
All right, so that was the first item on our agenda of old business. There is a second item, same map, same lot, map 3, lot 32A, 32A1. This is in regards to a site plan review hearing for the storage proceeding that would have been on the same, the property for the application we just denied. The same facts in regards to the application itself and what has transpired with the former owners and the current owners apply to this application. Is there a motion?
Yes, a motion that the application for map 3, lot 32A and A1 is incomplete.
And will be denied, Gail, as we
Right here
did
in
with the
writing.
previous.
The motion is right there.
Is there a second?
Yeah.
The chair seconds it. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Tim?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Phil?
Yes.
Peter? Karen?
Yes.
James?
Yes, it's all me.
Peter? Okay, Peter's not voting. Thank you. The motion carries. So the two items of old business have been handled. We now move on to an item of new business.
Are you doing the correspondence stuff first, or are you gonna skip it?
I'm skipping that and dealing with it as we deal with the applications, because they all relate pretty much to applications. New business, map 34, lot 88. This is a completeness review, conditional use permit and site plan review hearing for a proposal to convert an existing commercial building into a duplex building, creating 2 residential units, and to convert an existing warehouse building into a duplex building, creating 2 residential units as well. Both structures are located on the same lot. This proposal will create a 4-unit multifamily use of the property, which requires a conditional use permit per section 311, table of principal uses of the Goffstown zoning ordinance. The property is located at 9 Church Street. It is owned by Fletcher Mountain USA LLC. It is zoned Village Commercial. There is a waiver request. The site plan checklist item 7, traffic study. You have also received in your correspondence a letter from the applicant Eric Fletcher of Fletcher Mountain USA LLC requesting to make payments on impact fees on a graduated basis rather than paying in full before a certificate of occupancy is issued. Addressing that fact is not needed in regards to the acceptance. However, in regards to the application, we would need to accept it, keeping in mind that the waiver would be for acceptance purposes only. Joanne, is this application complete?
Yes, for acceptance purposes only, I recommend that the board find the application complete with the requested waiver for a traffic study and find that the site plan is ready for review with no regional impact.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Karen has seconded it. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Tim?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Phil?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
All right, Joanne, why don't you bring us up to date with this?
So the site is, the applicant had come in, I think it was back in, before I was hired, so it was beginning of 2017, and he had a site plan for a residential unit in a roundhouse, an office downstairs, and a warehouse building for the Taggart building. That really never came to be. The Taggart building is still vacant. So we took a look at the old site plan to make sure that everything had been addressed, and Sarah informed me that, yes, DPW did do a review and found that they had addressed all the comments from that mixed-use development back in, the plans were signed in April of 2017. So to bring you up to date from the current staff report, the applicant did meet with the Sewer Commission this week, and they did agree that there was capacity for the residential use. The applicant is looking to immediately construct an apartment in the old Main Street office, which is on the lower level, and then at some point in the future add 2 additional residential units to the Taggart building, which is currently a vacant building. So the sewer was fine with that. They do need to see the engineered plans once they are completed, and the Sewer Commission would provide their own approval on that. The police department had mentioned parking and suggested that the parking be angled. The parking that they had mentioned was actually the parking along Church Street, which is on this site, but actually used as parking for the hair salon, Chloe's Hair Salon across the street. So that parking is actually, not part of this site plan, even though it is shown as it currently stands because it is on the same lot. That parking has been there for many, many years, probably at least 10, and they don't plan to make any changes to that parking. I had suggested that they supply a lighting plan, but after speaking further with the owner, he advised me that these are just residential units, so they would just be putting the normal lights outside of the doors. There would not be any other lighting. The one thing that needs to be addressed is the parking. He needs to provide 2 spaces for each unit, and he has provided all of the spaces, the 8 spaces. However, one of them is a handicap space, which can only be used if there's a handicapped tenant. So he will need to provide the 10th space, which would be available to in one of those sites. So handout that you have and that was emailed to the folks at home show a recommendation that prior to the issuance of a building permit for the Taggart building, the location of that 10th parking space will be resolved in accordance with the zoning ordinance. So he can show it on a future plan and come back to get the board's blessing, or you could leave that up to staff. That's up to you. But that's where we stand right now with this application.
Thank you. Any questions for Joanne before we move on in regards to this hearing and hear from the applicant?
I have one question.
Peter?
Originally, when that building was moved, it was the deal was they were gonna put a warehouse in there. And now we've changed that. Has anybody researched that deal with Taggart Building and moving it over to there?
There is an agreement with the town on the Taggart Building, and I did review that agreement, and it basically just calls for, moving it and who's paying for what and that kind of thing. It didn't restrict it to any use. If he were to just do a two-family, he wouldn't need a conditional use permit. Actually, he wouldn't even need to be before the planning board. However, the multifamily is what requires the site plan as well as the conditional use permit to allow a multifamily in the village commercial district.
Okay, thank you. And then my second comment would be about the parking. I would hesitate on the parking to make sure they have enough because so how close that is to the town parking lot, which is overtaxed as it is now. I would want to make sure that the folks in that building weren't just using the town parking lot. That's something we could talk about when we get to that point.
Okay, anybody else have any questions for Joanne?
I do.
Tim?
So Joanne, the parking spaces that are on Church Street that are physically located on this site, even though other people have been using them, why is this site not being allowed to declare those as spaces for their site since those parking spaces are physically on the site?
Well, I think for this extra unit, for this extra parking space that they need, that could be one of the changes that they decide to do is to allow that one of those spaces to be included for their tenants. That's up to the applicant. He hasn't included it at the moment. He is including the spaces over on the other side of the Taggart Building. That's certainly an option.
Thank you,
It's
Joanne.
a little further away, but it's certainly an option.
Thank you.
Joanne, do you know whether the this is Barbara, do you know whether the parking spaces along Church Street are legally bound to the business at map 34 lot 100? I don't think they are they? They're not part of any other site plan, are they?
Well, no, but the site plan that he has on file for this shows parking for Chloe's.
No,
And he
I
shows-
understand that, but the parking spaces, he's shown them numbered, however they're numbered here, 10 through 15, are not on
Right.
any other plan anywhere numbered 10 through 15. That's just, Earl, when he did this plan, was showing existing conditions, right? That's essentially what that is.
Right. Let me just double check that older plan from 2017. I have it right in front of me. Wait 1 second. Those spaces back in 2017 were shown but not labeled for Chloe's. And I think the reason he put up a sign after that was because he had lots of other people parking there, and Chloe's did not have enough parking.
Okay, David.
Let me try to reword this. Joanne, the parking on Church Street, number 9 through 15, are they associated with the commercial building across the street according to a plan of use for that building?
A former plan? No, they're not.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, David. That was got to me.
Barbara, this is Jim. I have a question, though, on those parking spaces.
Jim.
We've been told that they encroach onto the public right-of-way. Joanne was inclined to say, well, leave them be because they don't directly affect what's before us for the buildings. But what's before us is a whole lot owned by one owner. And we're entitled to look at the whole lot. And they are encroaching on the town, and they shouldn't be a property, and they should not be. So this is an opportunity to require that they be moved so they're not encroaching. Why would we pass up that opportunity?
Jim, I did have a discussion with the owner yesterday about that, and he agreed with me that those spaces can be pushed over into the property so that he's not into the right-of-way, and that he would place some nitpack down there. So he agreed, and obviously he can speak for himself when the hearing opens up.
Then I suggest that we make that a condition of our approval so that we can bring this lot into compliance, including not encroaching on the town's property. Thank you.
All right, any other questions before we hear from the applicant? I'm not seeing any. Mr. Fletcher, welcome.
Thank you.
State your name for the record.
Richard Eric Fletcher,
Okay,
Goffstown, New Hampshire.
okay. So we've sort of talked about it. You've heard us, so
Yes.
why don't you give us again the overview of what you're proposing to do, and then I guess we probably need to address the parking.
I'm a little bit confused now that we're at the drawing board here. I have 8 spaces marked on my new revised site plan, and if I only need 4 spaces, okay, so I need the 8 spaces. That's fine. The spaces that we're discussing on Church Street can simply be moved forward up onto my lot a little bit. All I have to do is remove a couple of rocks.
Okay.
You still have to drive over town land to get to this parking spot. It just so happens that people just don't pull, they pull off the pavement onto my parking lot and they park as close as they can. So if I need to move those spaces forward, that's fine. If there's an issue with people backing out onto Church Street, I might recommend putting no parking signs along Church Street on the right-hand side, at least from my understanding. I believe it's 500 feet from a fire hydrant or the firehouse. There's no parking because the fire department's there. I'm not sure of that. It was something my father brought to my attention a little while back, and he was a former fire chief in town here. So, I don't have an issue down the road, maybe considering redoing the parking there, which brings parking towards the roundhouse. That therefore possibly opening up parking space along both sides of Church Street, which is a really much needed thing there. I often have a lot of problems with other people parking in the Chloe's Cup parking area. And as things get busier and busier in town, it seems to be worse as time goes along. So if there's an opportunity down the road to be able to reconfigure the parking, I have no issue bringing the parking into the front there. I didn't really want to have to address extra expenses that it would incur with that when I'm just trying to do these couple of units that I'm doing right now.
All right, so why don't you go through your plan for the units?
Okay.
So start with the existing building duplex that you're using.
So the existing roundhouse building, I have an apartment on the 2nd floor, which is, I have the occupancy permit, everything's been done through. The downstairs is a commercial office space where the Main Street program was located. Originally, that space was in conjunction with the warehouse when I had a plumbing and heating business in there. I came to the town hall asking for a permit to convert that downstairs unit office space into residential. That's originally all I wanted to do. But I was told that because the D.A. Taggart building number 1, was in conjunction with the commercial office space, I would need a conditional use permit, which meant having to go back to the planning board, and they wanted to see a site plan revision with the new lot line adjustment and, all these new things. So that's what triggered me having to come to the planning board to get approvals. I had just decided, I guess I gotta make a decision on what I'm gonna do with building number one, the D.A. Taggart building. I've tried a couple times to get some businesses in, and it just seems to be too difficult to do.
Okay, so your intent is what you would like to do is to put another living unit in the building you're using now.
Correct.
And the reason this has become a 4-unit proposal as compared to 2 is because both of those buildings were involved in your commercial approval, so you're changing the entire site, so to speak.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
But your plan right now is you're not planning right now to deal with the Taggart building.
Well, I'd like to get the unit in the roundhouse
Done
completed
first.
and rented, and that would then be my next plan.
All right, so, on the current plan that we have before us, you've got 7 parking spaces plus an 8th that's handicapped. So you need 4 parking spaces for the current building if you get the other unit in, right? The 2
Correct.
for the existing and 2 more. So
Correct.
based on the plan, you have no issues for parking for the round building.
Correct.
The issue for the extra space comes in when you do the conversion for the Taggart building.
Right.
Okay. And in regards to the parking spaces, you can move, on Church Street, you can move those in.
Correct. If I simply, I can't guarantee people aren't gonna pull all the way up onto my property.
Yeah, they probably won't.
They
'cause
can
it's-
do it now. They just don't. Because it's just off. What I might suggest is that the town paves their portion up to my property line,
Okay,
if need be. I don't.
That's getting ahead of.
okay, so we don't need to talk about that. So, one of the things you have, in connection with this, is that there's a conditional use permit, and your, surveyor, Earl Sanford, you have a conditional use permit issue in regards to having the multifamily use, which you get by having 2 two-family buildings within the village commercial district zone. So are you familiar with the letter that Earl wrote? Do you have it in front of you?
I do not.
All right, does anybody have a copy they can shoot over to Mr.
Or, I
Fletcher?
might.
Was it in our packet?
Yeah. I just don't want to rip mine out because I'm going to ask him questions on it. It's in his application package. So it's in this package. Do you have this?
Thank you, Patty.
Okay, so in connection with the conditional use permit, there are certain criteria that have to be met, and Mr. Sanford has written this letter on your behalf, and I'm gonna go through it with you, okay? One of the first condition is that the use is specifically authorized in the ordinance as a conditional use. And is it your understanding, as shown in section 311, table A6, this multifamily use is allowed? That was a yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, yes.
All right. And then the second criteria is if completed, the development will comply with the requirements of the section in the zoning ordinance and the conditions or standards established in the ordinance for the particular use. And Mr. Sanford is saying that this site plan will meet the standards ordinances, the standards in our town zoning ordinance and development regulations. Is that true?
Correct.
All right. There's also a requirement that the use be compatible with the neighborhood and adjoining or abutting uses in the area in which it is located. And Mr. Sanford, on your behalf, has explained to us that this area of town has commercial, residential, and governmental use, and changing this from commercial to residential use will actually be consistent and have less impact on traffic. Is that true?
That is true.
All right, and he's saying that the use will not have a substantial adverse impact on vehicular and pedestrian safety. Is that true?
Correct.
Will do you expect traffic to increase or decrease in the area with residential use as compared to commercial?
Well, according to our calculations that we did with his formula, it actually is less than what
Okay.
it would have been for a commercial use.
All right, one of the criteria is that the use will not have a substantial adverse impact on the appearance and visual quality of the surrounding neighborhood. Are there any changes proposed to these buildings exterior?
Maybe possibly a doorway or a window, but pretty much everything will stay. I might put a window in the back of it at some point, maybe if there's bathrooms, and depending on where I do my layout for the apartments.
All right, but there's no new structures proposed?
No.
Everything is gonna stay the same?
Correct.
All right, and the last conditional use requirement is that it will be adequately serviced by public utilities and community facilities, and there'll be sufficient capacity to ensure the proper operation. So Mr. Sanford says that this will, is already tied into municipal services, and have you spoken to sewer?
I have.
And is sewer, have enough capacity for you to convert this use?
They do.
And do you have water?
I do.
All right, so do you have all utilities or approval for all the utilities you'll need?
Lee at the water department confirmed we were all set. We were gonna tap on the existing line in the downstairs of the roundhouse
Okay.
and go off of that there over to the DA Taggart building. And I was with sewer on Tuesday night, and I do have a couple of options with the sewer that I need to look at before I make a final decision on what I'm gonna do, where I'm gonna run the line, whether I'm gonna do a pump chamber system, or if there's any possibility I could do a gravity feed. I
Okay.
have to do some research on.
You've got to
on
make
those.
that decision. Okay. All right, thank you. Do you have anything else you want to say to the board?
I believe that, no, I believe that pretty much we've covered everything that was,
All right, before I open the public hearing, board members, questions for the applicant?
I need that back, though. That's your original.
Tim?
It sounded to me, Eric, like Member Raymond would make it a requirement for your site plan to be approved that you do extend those parking spaces on Church Street. It would not be something that you could do at a later date. It would be a condition of approval. So did you understand what
I
that?
do, I have no issue with that whatsoever.
I just heard you say that you would do it at a later date. I wanted to be sure you understood that it would be proposed to be a condition of this approval.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from board members?
And I guess my question would be,
Peter?
are we definitely removing the parking spots out of the right-of-way for Chloe?
Yes, that would be a part of the condition of approval to extend the parking spaces so they are completely on lot 88.
All right, just wanted to check that one.
Other board members? All right, I'm not seeing any questions, so at this time, I'm going to open the public hearing. You can just stay there, Eric, since I don't have any other public hearing. This is a public hearing for map 34, lot 88. This is a completeness review, conditional use permit and site plan review hearing for a proposal to convert existing commercial buildings into duplex buildings, creating 2 residential units in one, and the other one being an existing warehouse building, which would become a duplex with 2 residential units as well. This property is directly behind the town hall, between the town hall and the post office, and it's located at 9 Church Street and is owned by Fletcher Mountain USA LLC. The property is zoned Village Commercial. Is there any member of the public online? I don't have any members of the public present to speak on this. I'm not seeing any, so I am going to close the public hearing. I do note, of course, that we did not address the traffic study. Joanne, do you have an opinion on the traffic study waiver request?
Yes, I don't believe traffic study would be needed. They're basically adding 3 apartments to the site versus the commercial use that had previously been approved. And they did not provide a traffic study for that plan either.
Any other questions or comments from people on the waiver request for parking?
We don't have a waiver for parking, do we?
Yes.
But there was one waiver.
Or traffic study, sorry, I misspoke. You're right, parking, not parking, traffic.
A question for residential uses, do we ask applicants for traffic studies?
I think
Depends how
because
big it
it's
is.
a commercial multifamily, apparently it came up on the list.
Thank you.
And as Joanne points out, we didn't ask for it when he did the commercial, we did the commercial site approval before. All right, Mr. Fletcher, you have anything you want to add?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, so board members, it would appear that the first issue we need to deal with.
Did you ever close the public hearing? You're leaving.
Yes, and no, I closed the public hearing. Would be to vote on the waiver request. Do I have a motion in regards to the waiver request? There is language in regards to the waiver request in your package on page 18. Is anybody gonna make that motion for me?
I'll make the motion as soon as I find it.
Tim,
I'd like to make a motion to grant the waiver for the traffic study when the strict application of the regulation would cause practical difficulty, and no, that's not it.
yeah,
Is that the one you wanted?
yep.
Would cause practical difficulty, the board may grant this waiver.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Phil. I think given that.
Peter.
Oh, sorry, Peter. I think given that the previous site plan didn't have one and that it appears that the use is gonna be limited or frankly pretty consistent with what it is now, a traffic study probably isn't necessary. Does anybody else wanna say anything on the waiver request? Seeing none, it's been moved and seconded, so I'm going to call the roll. Tim?
Yes?
David?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Phil?
Yes.
Peter?
Yeah.
Karen?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
All right, the waiver request has been granted. Joanne, you've submitted on the update a number of conditions, some of which are on the plan, and there are a couple of issues. You've crossed out, I think, a couple of things, or I'm trying to keep up with which memo I have from you that would be what we need to deal with.
I eliminated 3 conditions that were on the previous staff report.
J, K, and L?
Yes. And then you would need to add a condition about moving the parking spaces out of the town's right-of-way.
Writing it up right now.
All right, Joanne, I like the report and everything that you did, but when you have one that's numbered and one that's letters, it makes it really hard to compare.
The chairs, I numbered them.
I tried so hard to.
Patty said she numbered them, so
I
there you go.
numbered 'em
Patty's
from it's
claiming
me.
responsibility for that.
I could not get it to change.
Okay. All right, so everybody just go through and compare to make sure that we're okay. So sewer change, correct note 12, reference. So your J, K, and L equate to 10, 11, and 12. Parking. Okay, so if you look at the chair's agenda, there are 15. You added a 16 you're proposing that he be allowed to proceed with the building permit for the unit in the existing building that has a residential use, and that the 10th parking space be resolved before he gets the building permit for the Taggart building.
Permit for the Taggart building.
Okay, but does that mean that we're proposing to let him have a building permit without a signed site plan?
No, that just means that the plan can be signed, but that when he moves forward to get the building permit for the Taggart building, that he needs to come back and show us where that 10th parking space is going to go. If tonight you want to resolve that and allow him to use one of those spaces on Church Street, that would solve the problem, because he does have certain ones marked off for Chloe's, but he also has 2 spaces that are available. 2 spaces plus a handicapped, which he needs on that side as well. But he could use one of those spaces as his 8th space for his residential unit.
Tim?
So Joanne, I'm a little confused about this conversation, because if he needs 2 parking spaces per unit, 4 units is 8 parking spaces. How does 10 come up? What is the 9 and 10? Are they 2 handicap spaces?
So he's provided 8 parking spaces, and he's saying 2 per unit. However, the 8th space is a handicapped, so he can't just say that's his 2 spaces per unit, because one person may not be handicapped. So he has to have that extra space. So he needs an extra parking space that's not handicapped for the fourth unit.
So how many handicap spaces are you requiring on the site, Joanne?
Well, he needs 1 on the Church Street, which he has, and then he needs 1 for the apartment.
Why does he need 1 on the Church Street? If the Church Street parking is not part of an approved plan, why does he need a handicap spot on Church Street?
Well, he's showing now that
I don't care what he's showing. Does he need 1?
Yes.
Why?
The zoning ordinance requires 1 parking space within a parking lot when it's, I think it's something like 1 to 25 spaces.
So the handicap spot requirement is there because the fact that there's other parking spots there, nothing related to a building.
No, it's just part of the parking. Let me just find it here before I say the wrong thing.
You just started talking about 10 spaces, Joanne, and none of us understood what you were talking about. Because if the Chloe parking spaces he's providing, not as part of any sort of site plan, but because he happens to own the lot across the street, so he's providing parking, then he can designate one of those spots for the parking for the residential units, right?
That's what I'm suggesting, rather than have him come back again. This way he can just have his approval and get on with it.
All right, David, I see.
Mr.
I
Fletcher,
wasn't finished.
Oh, all right, well, I didn't know it, okay.
I still didn't get an answer to my question, if I may.
All right.
So Joanne, does he need 1 handicap spot for each of the 2 duplexes?
There's 2 separate parking lots, so he needs, I'm trying to find it here in the regulations, each parking lot needs 1 handicap parking space for every number. So it's like 1, I think it's 1 to 25. If you have
Okay,
one,
Joanne,
two, I believe-
Joanne, stop. You're making this more, I think you're making this more complicated
So
than
my,
it needs
so
to
my
be.
direct question is, if he has two buildings that require 8 spaces, he needs 8 spaces for the 2 building plus 1 handicap parking spot for the 2 buildings. Is that what I'm hearing?
But-
Yes.
So he needs 9 parking spaces for the 2 duplexes, not 10. So I don't understand why we're talking about 10 parking spaces.
Because his handicapped parking does not count towards the 2s for each building.
Joanne,
So he would
stop.
need
I have
8.
no, right, so he needs 8 spots. He's only got 7. David,
So if you have a parking lot between 1 and 25 spaces large, you need 1 handicapped space.
okay, so we're done. Joanne, I'm sorry, I don't want to be short, but we're saying the same thing. There are 2 parking areas, so he's provided a handicap spot in each parking area. The handicap spot, as it stands now on the plan on Church Street, is not related to a building. It's there because of the parking area. David?
No, withdrawn.
Okay. Anybody else? Eric, you wanted to say
I
something.
also want to add, there are 3 parking spots behind Chloe's Cuts as well.
Right, you want, yeah.
So if,
Chloe's is not, okay. Tim?
So I still think we need to require 9 parking spaces for the 2 duplexes instead of 10. I don't understand how we've come up with 10.
She said 10, you're stuck on it. We're not at 10. We're at 8 spots for the duplexes.
And a handicap spot, so he needs a total of 9 spots for the 2 duplexes. Is that in agreement with the ordinance?
Yes, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
leave it at that. We're
right.
getting hung up on.
All right, so
That's what he should have. 8 plus the handicapped.
thank you.
So let me ask you something, Eric. If you move the dumpster location,
absolutely.
If
I
you-
also have room along the stone wall for probably 6 or 7 more parking spaces. We
Sure.
just didn't put it on the plan because, I mean, I go in there and park with my landscape trailer, and there's still plenty of room for people to back out and,
so that parking would be located in the area that is in the current area that you're proposing for the 7 spots plus the handicap. You could get another space in there.
I could get another space in there.
Right, we
and
can move
especially
the
if I-
dumpster over
I
and put
moved the
another spot
dumpster
at the
somewhere
end.
different. I could even move the dumpster up along.
Right.
There's definitely, but there's also room all along the wall there.
All right,
where-
so Eric, all we need is another parking space shown on the plan.
Okay.
And rather than get into this Church Street dialogue that
Yeah.
seems to be confusing the issue
Mhm.
beyond understanding, it seems to me, board members, what we're talking about is that approval would be contingent on placing another parking space in the area that currently spots 1 through 8 are shown, and moving what are shown on the plan as spots 9 through 15 so that they are no longer in the right-of-way.
Right.
Any other board comments on the parking issue? Okay. All right, now, he has, so we're gonna get that resolved. Does the board want all of that resolved? It seems to me you're gonna get that resolved. There won't be an issue with getting that resolved before now, will there be? I mean, you can do that for the plan that I need to sign for you to start the work, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's room there. I can add 3 more parking spaces if you want. We just didn't.
No.
We went.
One. I guess my question is, because at one point, Joanne was talking about resolving the other parking space, and she has referred to 10th in the write-up, which is what's causing the problem.
I guess my question would be why, if I have, I mean, how many parking spots would
Okay,
you make me have for Chloe's Cuts?
We're not getting into the number of spots for Chloe Cuts. There is no current requirement anywhere for it. So,
Just add 1 more to the plan in that
Okay.
location.
so when you bring the plan back in for signature, there's no reason why you need to wait to resolve this parking space issue.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I am okay with staff working with the applicant or Earl to get the 10th, see, I'm saying 10th, to get the 8th spot to go in the area where spots 1 through 8 are now. So there'll be 8 marked parking spots plus a handicap spot in that area. And you might have to move the dumpster or something like that, but I don't see any issues with it. Are board members okay with that? All right. And again, the plan, when you bring it back in to be signed, will show those spots on Church Street moved back so they're not on the right of way.
Yep.
Okay. Tim?
So what are you going to set for a real date for the parking spots on the right-of-way, Church Street, to be moved before he can do what? Begin the Taggart Building construction? Because you have to have, it has to be said when he has to do
Yeah,
that, so.
I mean,
So he
board
could-
members, I'm okay with that.
So I think it would be stated that the relocation of spots 9 through 15 onto that site have to be completed and inspected prior to the Taggart Building being able to be worked on for the apartment construction. That allows them to work on the other apartment in the roundhouse. But there just needs to be a time frame on that condition, not just an open, do it
Okay.
thing.
I'll do it in the spring. It's as simple as moving the rocks forward
That's
and,
fine.
and grading it'll take me longer to get my equipment there to do it than it will to do
I know
it.
you can't do it in the winter, that's why I wanted to put a time frame on it, so just some cut in stone.
Okay. There are a number of other conditions of approval that planning staff has given us. Does anybody have any other questions or comments on them? Okay.
Looking for a motion?
Is anybody ready to make a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Tim?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the application for Fletcher Mountain LLC, map 34, lot 88, to grant the proposal to convert the existing commercial building to duplex.
Actually, Tim, I apologize. We need a motion to approve the conditional use permit first.
I make a motion to approve the conditional use permit.
For the reasons cited in the applicant's letter and as stated in the public
For the
hearing.
reasons stated by the applicant under questioning.
And who seconded that?
Peter?
Thank you, Peter. Is there any further discussion on approval of the conditional use permit? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote, starting with members present. Tim?
Yes?
David?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Phil?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Tim?
Make a motion to grant the application to convert the, let me make sure I say it correctly. To convert an existing commercial building into a duplex and to create 2 additional residential units in the existing warehouse with the conditions noted by staff with the additional comments made about the relocation of the traffic spaces on Church Street. That was the only one we changed?
Yeah, and she was recommending striking, if you look at chairs, it would have been 10, 11, and 12.
No, okay. So the conditions of approval are 1 through 9, 13 through 15,
Okay, as part of my motion, yes, I accept that.
And adding a 16.
Adding the 16th about moving the parking spaces.
and
Second.
no, so 16 is relocating 9 through 15 on the plan and physically relocating them before building permits are granted for Taggart.
Yes,
And 17 is that a 9th spot will be shown on the plan in the area of parking that is 1 through 8 now, right?
okay. I amend my motion to include what Barbara just said.
Okay, and
I'll second that.
and that was Peter, okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm gonna call for a vote. Tim?
Yes?
David?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Phil?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, that takes care of this application.
And Kimberly has now joined us.
Kimberly, welcome.
Thank you. Barbara, you have one other action item on that application,
On Fletcher's application?
the payment of impact fees.
That's right. We have a request for impact fees. Have we ever done this before? Eric, you want to explain what your request is?
I'm just wondering if I can make monthly payments until I, rather than having to pay all the money up front. If I don't make the payment, then you take over the property.
Well, that's. What are impact
Barbara,
fees,
this
what
is
are
Jim.
impact fees?
Jim,
The impact fees are assessed by zoning. The ordinance does not give the planning board any authority to vary those terms. I think we have to enforce the ordinance as written, which doesn't allow what Ms. Fletcher is requesting. Moreover, there's no lien right or any other way to enforce an installment plan. So I much as it might be attractive, I don't think it's a remedy that we can grant.
Jim, in the zoning ordinance under payment of impact fees, it talks about the building inspector not being able to issue a certificate of occupancy until the fee is paid. But then it says, in the interim between assessment and collection, the planning board may authorize another mutually acceptable schedule for payment or require the deposit of an irrevocable letter of credit or other acceptable performance and payment guarantee with the town of Goffstown.
Tim,
When are impact fees due, Joanne, at the building permit or at the CO?
At the CO.
So if the applicant wants to make payments prior to achieving a CO, I don't understand the methodology. You could just save your money and make the whole thing one payment at the CO time.
I wanna make payments for a period of time.
But you can't get your CO unless your impact fees are paid in
I-
full.
I wasn't
Joanne is
aware of
pointing out that there's a provision in the zoning ordinance that seems to indicate that you can work out a payment plan. I think I would suggest that was probably not intended for a one-unit impact fee. We have pretty large units with huge impact fees that you might see that occupancy might occur over a period of time. And I'm not aware of us ever actually doing this before. Anybody else have any comments on this?
Just one comment. If he's looking to get the apartment, the lower apartment in the roundhouse before he has the others finished in the Taggart building, it would seem to me that if he's just looking for a CO at first for that apartment on the roundhouse, that all he needs to have paid is that particular one.
Mm-hmm.
That's right, Phil.
And that's what I'm asking, if I can have a payment plan on which is fine.
Anybody inclined to make a motion to grant the request? I'm not seeing anybody taking an action on it. Eric, if you've got a specific proposal you want to make,
I'm proposing to make $250 a month payment to the town of Goffstown until I've paid in full my
and what's the impact fee?
$6,300 for the one unit.
I don't know that payment would then go on for how many months, Eric?
I'll do 500. I'm just asking the town, seeing if they'll work with me a little bit on.
Anybody?
I was originally told the impact fee was gonna be 3,800, only then to then find out it's 63 now.
For the second unit in the roundhouse?
Correct. It's a very small, it's a studio apart, but because I'm doing a multifamily now with a second building, that now it falls under multi, so now it's up to $6,300 or $6,400 for that unit.
Barbara,
Yeah.
this
Karen?
is Karen. I was just wondering, do we have we in the past approved any sort of payment plan for impact fees?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Eric, I'm not hearing anybody inclined to grant it. Why don't, however, if nobody makes a motion on it, it's sort of still in front of the board.
That's fine, I don't need, I was just asking to see if the town would work with me a little bit, seeing as I'm a local guy, and whatever, it's all good.
Okay,
I'll figure out, I can make it happen.
okay.
It just would help, it would help me move forward with my plans, that's all. It's all good.
Okay. So I guess anybody want to make a motion to, deny the request? I think we need to do something with this letter request in regards to the application.
I'll make a motion to deny the request,
I'll second.
made by Richard Fletcher to ask if we would allow him to make payments on the impact fees.
Okay, and it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm gonna call for a vote. Tim?
Yes.
David, Kimberly will be voting since she's in the meeting now. The chair votes no.
Well,
Phil,
what, was it an affirmative or
to deny.
You voted to deny the request.
I vote, that's what I voted, okay.
Okay.
And you
Phil.
voted not to, okay.
Right. Phil?
Oh, what is the motion again, to
The
deny?
motion is to deny the request for payments on the impact fee.
Yeah, I vote no.
Peter?
No.
Karen?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
James?
I am voting yes to deny the request,
Yes.
which has the effect of a no.
What was
I
the,
think it's a little ambiguous what we're doing.
yeah, what was
Yeah,
the,
the motion, it's not, there was a,
did I vote
I'm like
against my own
losing, I don't
motion?
know
That's all I
why,
wanna
but
know.
lately I'm losing my mind at these meetings.
made
I-
This
I
was
vote
not
yes
that
on the motion,
complicated.
but
That's
to-
for the plain
To deny the request.
Right.
No,
And
you
what-
did not vote against your own motion.
Thank
vote
you. I
against
just wanna
it.
make
You
sure.
made a
Is that what he
motion
was
to
worried
deny
about,
the
Karen?
request.
I couldn't figure out what the heck
I
was
don't
going on.
understand what's going on,
So
thank you.
those who said
Yeah,
yes.
he wanted to make sure he voted
In favor of my own
And
motion.
in favor
No.
of his own motion, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, and his motion carried, correct, JL?
Yes.
Okay. So the request was denied.
That's
I don't know how we got through that, but we
It can't
did.
hurt to ask,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
I
right.
mean, it is what it is.
Okay. All right, thank you, Eric. Good luck with the building.
Thank you for all your help.
All right,
everyone.
so you're gonna come back with the plan, with the parking space, and we'll get it all straightened out.
Yep, and
Okay.
I'll be in the morning to get my permits for the roundhouse.
Madam Chair, can we make that administrative decision? We don't have to see it back here at the board?
Actually, because we made it a condition of approval without coming back, I just want it clear for the board that staff can handle the positioning of the additional parking space. That was my intent in that motion. Does anybody have a different intent?
No.
So when I sign the plan, it will be on it, but staff will determine exactly where it's supposed to go. Okay. And they'll work with you on, you're just gonna push the parking spaces in.
Yep,
We're not gonna see it again, it'll just be the plan I sign up at the planning board.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, good night. All right, the next item, that we're back to correspondence and action items, is a request for a recommendation regarding a ZBA variance request for maps 5, lots 54 and 54-1. It's a 30-unit condominium on Mass Road. The owner is Hemley Investments. Copies of the application you should have in your packet, some information that was sent to you from Nancy Larson titled December 8th. And this is before us for a recommendation in accordance with section 15375 of the zoning ordinance. The zoning board shall deliver to the planning board a copy of any application relating to a commercial or industrial project or use, or residential use of 3 or more units for which site plan approval will be required for the planning board's review and comment. except in extraordinary circumstances requiring immediate action, the zoning board shall make no substantive decisions on the application until at least 30 days thereafter. The planning board may submit a report or an advisory opinion to the ZBA and may present testimony at the public hearing on any application before the ZBA. If there is no comment, Ms. Larson is requesting that we respond, no comment. It was presented to the ZBA, and was continued, right? Gail, can you tell us, when is this in front of the ZBA?
It comes before the ZBA at our next meeting on February
Ninth.
Ninth?
Ninth.
Ninth, yes.
Okay. And the information that Ms. Larson provided us, had the application and the plan. I will point out, that the board has had, this issue before it before. In 2019, we had a similar request in regards to the applications on Tower Lane and also Mast Road project behind Rite Aid. The Mast Road project was pulled and we provided comments in regards to Tower Lane. In March of last year, there was a request for an opinion on the Easy Express car wash. And our comment was limited to the fact that the use was permitted by special exception and that we had no other comments on the plan or access. And in February of last year, we had a request for comment in regards to lead development, in regards to 3 variance requests for this project. I think lead development was also the project behind Rite Aid, wasn't
Yeah,
lead?
the bank.
Yeah, behind the bank, or by Rite Aid. So, it is in our zoning ordinance, we have made comments, we have not made comments. So, there is also, my understanding, somebody online from the applicant in regards to this process. I haven't actually made a determination as to hearing them. We have a memorandum or a letter, dated December 1st. Attorney Cronin, I understand, is on the line. I'm not sure I have on my agenda the validity of this provision of our zoning ordinance or not. I personally would prefer to simply deal with the request, whether we make a comment or not. Board members. Board members, so you have been asked to provide the ZBA with comment or no comment in regards to the proposal for residential multifamily dwellings off of Mast Road. This would be off an access road off of Tatro Drive. Does anybody have any comments? And I understand this to be in the context of our zoning ordinance.
Barbara, this is Jim.
Yep.
I think the purpose of this provision in our zoning ordinance was to give us an opportunity not to comment on the specifics of a plan, but rather to point out to the ZBA planning concept that we have been dealing with, and that could guide the ZBA in its decision, because it's normally not involved in the planning goals like we are. And the material change since last time we've been asked to do this is the adoption of the new master plan, which, although it doesn't have the body, isn't a law like an ordinance, it provides guidance on making decisions on land use. So I think our comment could be that we point out or notify the ZBA of the adoption of the revised master plan and ask that it consider the planning goals that are in the master plan when it considers this variance request for these variance requests.
Anybody else? Jim, I certainly think that would be an appropriate comment to make. David?
The zoning is being asked to look at a plan that was written in 2009, which is inaccurate because it doesn't show an abutter's parcel. And specifically parcel 19-47-6, otherwise known as the Gulfstown Rail Trail belonging to the Park Department. And there are many references in the document submitted by the firm indicating that that parcel belongs to the applicant. And I take issue with the fact that they're referring to the town's property as their property in these documents. And this misinformation's being presented to the zoning board.
Okay, well, I mean, I happen to be very aware that the town owns the rail trail because I was involved with the discussions and purchase when it happened with the state and the railroad, so there is not a question of ownership or easements of the rail trail. It is clearly town property. The meets and bounds or other spots of it are obviously matters of record beyond anything I have knowledge of, but David is absolutely correct. It is property owned by the town.
And if I just, in one portion, it stated that the front portion of our property has been improved by the rail trail. They're referring to their property has been improved. And another one refers to that they're willing to grant an easement for the rail trail to be there. There's no need for an easement because the town owns the property. So this,
Okay.
So
I
at
think,
at some point, that needs to be clarified in the application, whether it's as it goes before zoning or when it comes back here to the planning board.
well, I certainly think that Jim's comment in regards to looking at it in the context of the master plan and ensuring that when you're looking at it, the ZBA takes into effect that the proposed building, the lot the proposal is on, in fact, abuts town property, and it's not really, portrayed like that. I also think it might raise some issues in regards to the setback issues that are what is bringing it before the ZBA to begin with. I'm not sure. That would have to be calculated.
So, Barbara,
Mm-hmm.
I just had a follow-up question to David's comments. So, David, are you suggesting that in addition to the comments that Jim suggested, to point out the inaccuracies that are in the application?
I would like a comment from this board back to zoning that there are inaccurate portrayals of ownership of land, and specifically that map 19 lot 47-6 runs through the or subdivides the applicant properties into 2 tracts, and that is not shown on the documents being presented to the zoning board.
Which I don't know for sure, but it might ultimately impact what relief they need from the zoning board in regards to
The
units 13 to 16.
This drawing it shows that they acknowledge a 25-foot setback from the northern boundary of the rail corridor.
So that seems like something that might be important to point out to them in addition to the comments about the master plan.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
This is Kimberly.
Yep, Kimberly.
I guess I always struggle with the overlaps between planning and zoning. Especially to Jim's comment, we've put the effort into developing a master plan that identifies areas of the town that are targeted for specific types of development. And I understand that it's up to zoning to allow waivers for things that change that. I guess I wouldn't support residential in our commercial industrial flex zone. And I know that that's probably not our decision, but I don't know how to say that within our role as the planning department, because we've planned for certain areas in our town of development, and this doesn't meet that plan.
Okay, anybody else?
Barbara, do you want me to respond to Kimberly's comment, or I don't know if she's made a...
Yeah, because I want to keep this discussion moving on this.
Okay. I will not.
No, so go ahead.
Well, we don't have the statutory authority to intrude on the ZBA's jurisdiction. And I think that's the part of the substance of the attorney's comment, that we have to be careful how we use this power, because we are, as Kimberly said, we are not the ZBA, and we're not having a hearing, and we're not entitled to have a hearing on this application because it's not before us as an application. So I don't think we can go much further than we are.
All right, well, Jim, do you think that my comment regarding concern about the setback issue is a valid one, given David's point that the property is actually owned by the town?
I do, because that's a factual matter.
Right.
That's just an error that we might have knowledge of that they don't, and she sort of pointed out, but it doesn't go to the...
I could offer that there's...
Go beyond that, so I think that's fair to put in.
Okay.
I could offer, you could also reference a plan at Hillsborough County Registry of Deeds, number 35888, which shows in front of this applicant's property is 5 boundary markers, and indicating the location of the town's rail corridor.
The town was notified. I did the notification for.
All right, so would the board be authorizing staff to notify the ZBA as to the applications in regards to map 5, lots 54, 54-1, that we have approved a master plan update, and point that out so that the ZBA members are aware of that update, and to keep in mind the goals and purposes as in that adopted master plan, and that a factual issue has been raised as to the boundaries of the lot that the proposal is located on, which may impact some of the relief that the applicant needs. Does that sound like what we've been talking about?
I second that motion.
All right, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the roll. Tim?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Phil?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Thank you. Joanne, do we also have ordinances to deal with tonight?
Yes, you just need to vote on them so that the select board could include them on the warrant that they will be voting on Monday.
All right, and so the first one is, shall the town adopt amendment number 1 proposed by the planning board by adding definitions to the zoning ordinance glossary. We previously had a public hearing on this. There were no comments. These have to do with beer in breweries. And is there any discussion? In the interest of doing a roll call, I think I want to go through, and I'm just going to ask for a consensus, so we can just do one vote if possible on these. I don't know, maybe we should just do a vote on each one. We'll just do,
Well, they do put it in there, the vote of the planning board.
that's true for each article, so I'm going to have to do it for each one.
Yep.
All right, if there's no further discussion, is there a motion to recommend approval of amendment number 1?
This is Jim, I move that.
Is there, it's been moved and seconded by who?
Phil?
Phil, any further discussion? I'm gonna call for a vote. Tim?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Phil?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Thank you. Amendment number 2, as proposed, is to amend allowable uses by including the new use that we just did a definition for. Is there any discussion?
I move that we amend, we approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded by Jim and Phil. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Tim?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Phil?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Thank you. At the top of the second page of your handout, we have amendment number 3, which is proposed, which is adding a new use in our table of principal uses in regards to what we're talking about, brew pubs and nano breweries. Is there a
This is Jim,
motion?
I move we approve.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Tim?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Phil?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Amendment number 4, as proposed, deals with the detached accessory dwelling units on the same lot as the principal use, in regards to a building that exists on the lot. I know the ZBA has seen 1 or 2 applications in this regards, and this would allow it to occur without going to the ZBA. Discussion. Is there a motion?
Barbara, I'm going to move that we not approve. I'm not prepared to approve this yet.
Second.
A motion has been made
Well,
to,
let me rephrase that. These are our proposals, so I would move that it not go on the warrant.
right.
Remove from the warrant.
Well, we won't submit it. It's not even being removed. We're just not gonna submit it.
Yeah, it's not going to, whatever the phrasing is, not just approval or disapproval. It doesn't go anywhere.
All right, Jim, you wanna explain your motion? We do have,
I understand the thought behind this, but I'm also mindful of impact it has on our established residences and neighborhoods. And we have conflicting goals. One is to provide more affordable housing, and the other is to protect the investment of existing landowners. And you are adding an element of density of development by permitting this that's a substantial increase in density. Goffstown already, unlike some of the surrounding towns, and I won't name names, provides a large amount of affordable housing. And you can always add more, but we're not efficient in that role. In fact, I think we've done a very good job of providing a mixture of housing, particularly compared to some other towns. So I think before we go down this road, I'd like to have a better sense of what the impact is going to be on the existing neighborhoods, what the density is going to look like. It may be that, having seen that, we can come up to a different result. But as of now, I'm not prepared to do that.
anybody else? I'll just say that there was one approved by the zoning board in my neighborhood. It was, you know, I think an appropriate approval. It's too bad that the applicant had to go to the ZBA, but the fact of the matter is that was a pretty unusual circumstance, and it works for that lot. And I think the problem with this is when you start talking about detached buildings in Goffstown, there are a lot of things that are detached buildings on the same lot that we probably should get a handle on before we go forward on this. And in the meantime, I think the ZBA has done a good job of approving the requests when they come in, because I think it's something that should be done when it's appropriate, but to do it on a gross scale without the need for any sort of specific review right now is probably a bit much. All right, so Jim is moving that it not be submitted, and it has been seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm gonna call for the vote. Tim?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Phil?
Yes.
Peter?
Yeah.
Karen?
No.
Kimberly?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
All right, it will not go on the warrant. The amendment number 5, as proposed by the planning board, is to eliminate the requirement that accessory dwelling units are not permitted to add new exterior entrances facing the front of the building. Discussion or motion?
Make a motion that we let this go forward.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Phil, you want to speak to your motion?
Well, one of the issues that it does is some of these have a separate address, or when they're trying to get deliveries or people are looking for them, even emergency service people are trying to find them. They can't find them because they can't see the doorway because it's on the side of the building.
Thank you. I'll also point out that we have a lot of duplexes in town that don't look a lot different than what would look like a house with an accessory dwelling and a door on the front of it. I started to notice after we talked about this, there are a lot of buildings, houses in towns with 2 doors facing the front, so I think this is reasonable. All right, I'm gonna call for the vote. Tim?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Phil?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
James?
Yeah, yes.
Amendment number 6, as proposed by the planning board, would amend section 3, allowable uses, 372, that currently refers to single, and 2, and limit it to a single family reference, which would eliminate an inconsistency in regards to the references and the confusion with multifamily. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve this.
Is there a second? Phil?
I'll second.
Peter? Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Tim?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Phil?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
The next amendment, 7, has to do with the table of dimensional uses by eliminating 0 yards and adding multifamily. This is that footnote 4 that has us all confused all of the time.
I move that we approve so we don't have to look so lame when somebody asks us what this means.
Is there a second?
Second.
Tim has seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing.
I was my only concern with it, it just seems to, well, maybe this is not the one. No, I'm sorry, this is not the one I'm talking about. I'm okay with this one.
All right. Tim?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Phil?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Amendment number 8, as proposed, would amend multifamily dwellings, when we're referring to coverage, replacing lot with building, and other changes to create consistency in the use of terms, as referred to in the table of dimensional regulations.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve.
Is there a second?
Yeah, this is the one that I have a concern about, though. I mean, this one is so confusing that even when you read what's there with the changes, to me it's still confusing, and I think we should just review the entire section.
Well, here we're just getting rid of extra words at this point, so
Well, I'll second it.
Thank you, Karen.
Yep.
Well, there is a lot in that section, but it does seem to make the references clearer. We did have issues in the past in regards to side yard references, so this is something that pops up periodically, I think, throughout the zoning ordinance, and sometimes we catch it and sometimes we don't. All right, so it is moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call for the vote. Tim?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Phil?
No.
Peter?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
James?
yes.
Okay, Joanne, is that the last one?
Yes, that's the last one.
Is there any other
The
business?
only other item, can you hear me? This seems like there's...
Thank you for your work on this.
Yeah, Barbara, before we move on, I think we should thank Nancy. She did some good work on combing the ordinance. That's something that we need.
Thanks, Jim.
We appreciate it.
And Connor,
you.
for those of you who can't see us, Connor is with us. Connor spent a lot of time working in regards to the accessory use dwelling. He provided us with some examples of other towns that do that. You know, you opened up our eyes. It's something we need to look at. So thank you very much for all your work. I hope you don't think we're just sort of summarily dismissing it. Unfortunately, we sort of did not have sort of a work session in particular on it, and for us to make a change like that, I think you heard the board wants a better idea of what it's going to actually mean. But thank you for all the work you did on it, too.
I appreciate the board's time.
Well, thank you for coming. It's nice to have like a member of the public here.
Happy to help.
Yeah, thank you. We hope you've enjoyed working on it here with the town.
Absolutely. I've enjoyed working with everyone here.
Great, thank you. All right, Tim, did you have something before I went to
Yeah,
Joanne?
two
Barbara, there's one more item.
Joanne, Tim has something.
Two things I'd like to ask about. In our packet, we got something from Fojo Law.
That has to do with the application we already dealt with.
Well, no, there's a petition to discontinue a portion of Kennedy Hill Road.
That had-
Comment, that went away as well?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right, the other thing is, this is for Joanne. I'm noticing that the Cumberland Farms is undergoing some renovations, and it looks like there's going to be 2 units in there.
Yes.
We have not seen anything. I understand did you make an administrative decision on that project?
Yes, this project went to the TRC, and we provided the owner with the comments that were needed as far as it's basically he's doing the interior renovation is the big item. He's also repaving the parking lot, striping it. The one unit has been rented out to an insurance agent. The other unit is still available.
Well, my question for you would be, is since Cumberland was a single entity in the building prior, this is 2 units now. This is not quite a complete change of use, but there's a lot of traffic and parking concerns that I have with having 2 separate businesses try to occupy the same small parking lot. In addition to the fact that the approval for Factory Street to be used as a primary entrance and exit to the mill building project, I have a lot of concerns about how we are going to accommodate all of the movement there in that area.
Well, the driveway hasn't changed. The access remains the same. They did take away that sign that was there. It was sort of an obstruction. So the only site changes that they've made to the building itself were the paving and the striping. We did recommend that the employee parking be along the side of the building where Factory Street is. But the Cumberland Farms was a retail use, which obviously had lots of traffic in and out, quick trips. The type of use that they're proposing currently is for a, like I said, an insurance agency, which will have very, very minimal traffic. I think we did tell him that we did reserve the right to bring him back in should there be traffic issues, parking issues, etc. I believe that was discussed at the TRC meeting.
David?
I believe the planning board lost an opportunity by not reviewing the use of that property. The engineer for the Hadley Falls development very bluntly told the board that a sidewalk from a 90-plus residential unit out to the main street could not be provided because Factory Street is so narrow.
22 feet.
And there would, when the use of that building became under the purview of the planning board, it was an opportunity for the planning board to facilitate putting in a pedestrian sidewalk as a condition of approval. And I'm sorry we lost that opportunity.
And how long has Cumberland Farms been out of that building?
I'm not sure.
It's been a long time.
It's been a while, but I don't know the exact time period.
It's been a long time. So I have to admit I share David's thoughts on it, and I appreciate wanting to accommodate businesses coming in, because certainly it was sort of an eyesore, and you want to get what you can get done with it. But even a notification to the planning board could have raised issues maybe that would have accommodated perhaps a different plan for that site, because now I'm hearing because of parking issues, you're telling them to provide parking on the side of the building, which again is something that goes to the traffic flow to the Hadley Falls development, and the space that's there.
Again, we had all of the departments there. Well, I didn't make
Joanne,
a
the point
decision
is
in a
not that-
closet.
Yeah, right.
We had much discussion on this.
I
other
understand that,
departments
but
and-
the department concerns as compared to the planning concerns are different. I think that's the point. But if it's been done and it's moving forward, as David says, it sounds like a lost opportunity. Tim?
So Joanne, what is the mechanism for recalling them on an administrative decision if there's a parking problem? Do you have some conditions you gave them in writing?
I have to look into it. It was a while back that we had that meeting, but I don't believe there was anything in writing, but it was definitely on the record.
All right.
That was.
Okay, so maybe for our next meeting, Patty, can we just include the minutes of the TRC meeting that it was discussed?
I don't believe there is, do you do minutes?
No, we don't do minutes.
Okay, so is there anything?
Hello? Can I say something?
Peter?
100 years ago, and I don't want to date myself, that used to be 2 units. And another thing, the topography of that lot doesn't really allow to have a sidewalk on the Cumberland Farm side.
All right,
If
we're
you're
not
gonna put a
talking,
sidewalk-
Peter.
Well, no,
I'm not turning
that's
into
okay. Don't interrupt me. I'm talking.
Peter, I am the
That's what
chair,
David
and
brought
I
up.
am ruling that the subject of the actual site plan is over. The issue was
David just
whether
brought it
or
up, and
not,
Tim brought it up. They
So-
brought it up, and Tim brought it up. You're not allowed
Tim
to
brought it up
talk
from an
about it?
administrative standpoint, and David brought up an issue in regards to a potential planning issue. I'm not getting into
And
the
I'm-
site plan.
And I'm telling you, that used to be 2 units years ago, and that's what Tim brought it up. Tim brought up the unit that they were breaking it into 2 units that it used to be years ago. That's my point.
I didn't know that.
It was 2 units.
Well, I didn't know that.
Used to
I
be
asked
Big
the- I
Nola's
asked the
Pizza.
I asked the question.
Probably didn't come up at TRC, but TRC discussed it and determined the use would be less, impact in the area than what had been there previously. Is that right, Joanne?
Just saying.
Just saying.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the problem, Peter and I are not known to back down, and it is not helpful when you've got one on telephone and one on the other, so there you go. If we had been in person, we could have just gone into the center of the room and duked it out.
Well, at least it makes for an interesting night.
Well, that's right.
I enjoyed that.
All right. Joanne, you said we had another item.
The other item is that we have no applications for the January 28th meeting, so if the board would like to cancel that meeting.
Well, can we schedule a meeting where Peter and Barbara duke it out and we watch?
I'll sell tickets to that one.
I'm good with that.
Well, Peter and I will
As long
accommodate.
as Barbara ties one hand behind her back, I'm good.
I'll bring the popcorn.
Peter, you'll still lose, so I move that we not have the second January meeting.
All right,
That's a second and motion to adjourn.
all right, it's a second and a motion to adjourn. I'm going to take the roll. Tim?
What are we voting on?
No meeting on the 28th. We're not going to see each other till February because we are adjourning.
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Phil?
Yes, yes.
Kimberly? Peter?
Yeah.
Yes.
Karen? And James?
Yes.
Yes. The only question I have is when did Jim become James?
Because he's on my roll call sheet. He's on my committee member sheet as James, so I'm sticking to the script.
It distinguishes me from Kim.
And it does make it easier.
That's a good point. Valid point.
Don't take it seriously.
All right, we are adjourned, everybody. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.